Hey, everybody, welcome to the Triple B Experience podcast. And you know the saying by now, we're not just another podcast. We are an experience. We are the Triple B trio. I'm Gary D. We have Cable, and we have
What's up, guys?
The legend, Bad Bubba Brewer.
I don't know if I'm a legend, but thank you. I try. I try.
How's it going, guys?
It's going real good. Real busy, but it's going great.
Tonight is a big night.
Be back.
Absolutely. It's a big night. We are excited. Bubba, why don't you lead us in, my man?
Well, I'm going to lead you guys in because we all like to laugh at the Triple B experience. And I believe tonight we are going to laugh so much tonight. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen of the Triple B experience, we have comedy writer, actor. He's a 7-time Emmy Award winner. From 2000 to 2014, he was the head writer for the Oscars. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Oscars. He had a 1999 documentary called Get Bruce. He has performed numerous times on Broadway. And honestly, when I was growing up and I loved this game show, he was on the iconic game show, The Hollywood Squares. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to laugh our ass off on the Triple B experience, welcoming Bruce Vilanch.
Hey, there he is. Or Caitlin.
We're starting with a sight gag. Hello. I've got a funny t-shirt.
Perfect.
Fantasy football. This is how I play it at my house.
Awesome. Nothing wrong with that.
I picture Tom Brady doing the Nutcracker and write your own Nutcracker joke.
Well,
Cable. Here's the punchline.
Cable used to. He is a Patriots fan, and well, you know.
Okay.
Bitter feelings about that.
He left, right? But he went to Tampa, he went to Florida, like every other old Jew in my community.
Yeah, he must be getting ready to retire.
We migrate to Florida, like swallow.
Well, he can't retire fast enough for me.
Why shouldn't Tom Brady do that?
That's right. Exactly. Well, welcome to the Triple B Experience podcast, Bruce. We're so honored to have you.
I'm glad to be here. I'll play with my hair for a while.
That's good. Hey, at least you got it. I do not. So.
Going for latter-day Suzanne Summers, I'm going for it.
As long as you condition it, Bruce, it's all good.
That's exactly what I do. I have elves come in, but never mind. It's great to be here in Pittsburgh. With the brand.
That's right. You said it's one of your favorites, so.
I love Pittsburgh. I've been going there for years. I hosted Pride a bunch of times on Liberty Avenue, which of course, became a gay tourist mecca after Queer as Folk. And of course, there was no Liberty. I mean, there was Liberty Avenue, but it wasn't like it was on Queer as Folk. So the people who ran businesses had to get together and create Liberty Avenue for the tourists. Kind of like they built our own little gay Disney street. Because they shot the whole thing in Toronto, the TV series.
Okay.
The British one was shot over in Manchester, but it was all they created it because people kept arriving saying, well, where's Babylon? Where's this? Where's that? We thought this was all in Pittsburgh. So they had to make it in Pittsburgh. So I would come in. I had friends who were in that business, and I would come in and kind of, sprinkle celebrity fairy dust on the thing every now and again. Gay celebrity fairy dust. To sort of make it legitimate. But I've been coming to Pittsburgh I played the Nixon Theater, which I'm sure was long gone, which was where the Broadway shows played when I was a kid. I was in the show. And then I came with Bette Midler when I started writing for her in the 70s. And she was the first Jewish girl to play the Syria Mosque.
Okay, I remember that.
I don't know if that's even still there anymore.
No, it's not, Bruce. No.
It's all gone. But, the jokes are still good. I'll show you a golden triangle. Still work. We've been doing it wherever she plays in Pittsburgh. Now I think we play where the Penguins play. She does hockey rinks now. But
PPG paints, yep.
I forget the names of the places because they're always changed, right?
That's
because
true.
Like Diet Snapple comes along and buys the naming rights, and suddenly it's Snapple Stadium.
Yep. Whoever's going to show the money.
The best was Philadelphia, where Fidelity Union took over what used to be the Spectrum, the hockey rink and basketball rink, and it was Fidelity Union, and they put a great big letters on the side of the building, F-U.
Well, that's how they are down there, Bruce.
Yeah, that sounds like
I know,
Philly.
we pulled up and I said, how can we resist this? This is the photo opportunity of all time. It was like orange lettering, FU. It said like, nobody at this bank thought that there might have another meaning to FU. And the Sixers played there, and the Flyers played there, and I think it's something else now. Somebody FU went away, and MFU came along.
Well, they're the only fans to ever boo Santa Claus, and they used to have a jail in Veteran Stadium. So if they got too drunk, that's where they ended up back in the day.
Oh, that's hysterical. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
When you boo Santa Claus, you're pretty bitter.
You're bad. That's correct.
That's kind of like the definition of bitter.
Yeah.
So bitter, we booed Santa Claus. Thank you. I'm here always.
But hey, Bruce, let's let's begin. Take us back to let's take us back to the early years. What was little Bruce like? And you grew up in New Jersey.
I grew up in Jersey.
Okay.
Which was 12 miles across from the George Washington Bridge, a straight shot. And if Chris Christie kept the bridge open. And so I went into New York a lot. I was a theatrical kid. My father was a doctor, and my mother was like a showgirl. But she, her career was thwarted. She married my father. But so she was like a stage mother, but not like a pushy stage mother, not like Gypsy, or like, but not like Britney Spears' father. She wasn't that kind of stage mother. But they got a kick out of the fact that I really enjoyed performing. I mean, they knew I was happy. I would dance in front of the bathroom mirror, and I would perform at family dinners, and so they kind of encouraged me. So I did a lot of that, and it helped me a lot because I was heavy. I had a deep voice. I looked older, and I was not athletic. So what happens when you're not an athletic kid is you get picked on by everybody who is.
I feel you.
And this is before before bullying had been canonized as a thing. Yeah. Back then it was a rite of passage. Everybody who wasn't standard issue got picked on, got bullied. We called it bullied, but it wasn't a criminal kind of thing. It didn't have the freight that it carries with it now. And I'm not judging it. I mean, I think it's a good thing that we are like hip to what it really is. But back then it was like it went with the territory. So I avoided it by being very active in other areas, and I got jobs as a child actor. I was a pro. I was never a child star, or we'd be all in rehab talking about this.
Bruce, what was your most famous childhood role when you did that?
Wow. I didn't have anything. I mean, the most noted, but I can't find it, is a modeling session I did for Lane Bryant, which was a store for fat women. And plus size. We now say plus size, because there is no more fat shaming. But that was their market, was fat women. And there was their competition was a much smaller chain called The Forgotten Woman. Because you couldn't get anything in your size if there wasn't a pulse if you were fat. Anyway, so they decided to do a children's line, I guess because there was a shortage of fat women. Who knew? And they decided to go and market to fat kids. And so I was Charming Chub. I was Charming Chub. And the next, I was Stylist Stout was going to be the next level. But it never got that far. I mean, and I outgrew it almost immediately. I became husky. Neither man nor boy. He's husky.
I was husky too. Doesn't that suck?
You husky. You knew it, and nothing fit. Nothing fit.
Nothing fits now.
They didn't know, because they were like kids who were like big, and then there were men who were like big, but they weren't big men, but they were fat. Right. And it was all thrown into the Huskies bin.
Yeah, I was 12
ever
years old.
Exactly fit you.
Nothing.
Everything had to be kind of let in, taken out, tailored stuff. I mean, I could never wear a tie. Nothing around my neck would ever fit. So that was my most, I think, as a child, famous thing. I did a lot of theater, a lot of summer stock, and a lot of the times I played characters way older than I was, because I had a deep voice and I looked like an adult. And I would play people's father who were, 20 years older than I was. So it was like Angela Lansbury, who played she played Elvis's mother, and she was 6 years older than he was at the time. But he could carry that off, that was her forte at the time. It Blue Hawaii, for those of you who are playing along, that's the movie where she plays Elvis's mother, and she has a Southern accent. She's Southern because, of course, she's from London, so she would have a Southern accent. But that's the joy of Hollywood, the beauty and the joy of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are the early years.
Was there any role that you played that sticks out still that you enjoyed more than the others?
Oh, well, I did all the fat sidekick roles in musical comedy. I called them the Stubby K parts because there was a guy named Stubby K who played all of them. Gods and Dolls, the guy who sings "Sit down, you're rocking the boat." That's nice. Lil Abner, he played Mary and Sam. I played Luther Billis in South Pacific, the guy who sings "There's Nothing Like a Dame." That was ironic. But he does a hula in the second act, in a hula skirt with coconut tits. Honey Bunch is that song. And I did a lot of those parts. I did a lot of those character actor parts that are in musicals. They're like the best friend, or generally they're written to cover the star's costume changes. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of, but they're fun to play, and they always have a couple of really funny numbers in them, and a lot of timing, like that kind of stuff.
So showbiz
those were the memorable ones.
So showbiz was always a thing for you.
And then Doolittle, the father in My Fair Lady, that's probably the most memorable one because he has two fabulous numbers and kind of walks away with the show. Sort of.
But for as long as you can remember, showbiz has always been a thing for you then?
Forever. My mother said that I learned how to read by looking at the movie ads in the paper. This is back when there were papers, and the papers had ads for the movies, display ads for the movies. And I would just sit there and I would start reading. I'd pick out, but she said Virginia Mayo was a movie star at the time, and I used to point at her knit word and go, "Virginia Mayo," and I would read it to her, and so she was stunned. So she said there was never a question but that I was going to go into show business. They tried so hard. They wanted me to be a Jewish lawyer or a Jewish doctor because that's the way in my people. And the joke was, I can't be a doctor. I have no patience. And they took me to see a movie called Compulsion, which was a big hit. And Orson Welles of Citizen Kane played a lawyer. He played, I think, Clarence Darrow. And it was a famous case of two college kids who murdered a child, Leopold and Loeb. It was like the O.J. case of its day. And they said they took me to see it because Orson Welles got to do all these speeches in court, like Perry Mason, and they thought I would say, "See, you could perform in court and make more money." And I said, "No, I think I'd rather perform for an audience and maybe make more money than the lawyer. I don't know, but it would be nice if the lawyer is paying to see me. There would be some sort of poetic justice."
Yeah.
And none of it took, obviously I was not headed for any of the professions. I was going to just take my own way. And they just wanted me to make a living. They said, because of the acting, I was always auditioning against guys who were older than I was, and they would always get the part. And they said, you have to grow into your character, and you should have something to fall back on. And so they suggested journalism, which at the time there were newspapers, and they said, well, they'll never go out of style. Who knew?
Very true. Very true.
So I went to Ohio State, and I majored in theater and journalism. I had a 5-year program.
You said Ohio State.
Yes.
Okay. And did you do any theater at Ohio State?
I did a lot of theater.
Okay.
I did a lot of football because they got all the money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And instead of the roof of the theater caved in, and we couldn't fix it because they had just put new turf on the field of the Ohio Stadium. And, when you look at it in economic terms, it was a gigantic revenue stream for the university. It still is. It's huge. So of course that's where they were going to spend the money.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the theater had no roof. It was not an outdoor theater. It was a dilapidated building.
Yeah.
And so, there was. So I got to rail about that as the editorial writer of the Ohio State Lantern.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Was they upset? Was they upset when you did that though? When you did the editorial?
Oh, they were very pissed. They were very pissed off at me. They were. Oh yeah.
No free tickets, huh?
Well. Well, the football team plays in a big toilet bowl, so you don't have to worry.
I did a lot of theater. And I grew up in Jersey with Richard Lewis, and he was at Ohio State. We went together to Ohio State, and so we did theater together. But he grew tired of theater and really wanted to do comedy. There was no place to do it there at the time, so he just spent the 4 years building up the misery and bitterness so that he would have a routine. When he got to the big stuff.
That's awesome.
And if you know Richard's work, there's no shortage of misery and bitterness. I mean, it was. And in fact, my mother was friendly with his mother. My mother was in business with his father. His father was a caterer, and my mother was a wedding planner, and it's a side hustle. And so we would see them all the time. And my mother felt terrible always whenever she saw Richard on TV because he would use his mother, as
he would,
material.
Yeah.
And she said, she called me one night and she said, I ran into Blanche Lewis today at the supermarket. And I had to go over to her and I said, Blanche, I really am. I think it's so awful what Richard does to you. And he just makes blunder from you on television. It's awful. And Blanche said to me, what are you talking about? That's some other woman. He makes that shit up. What are you talking about? So I figured, she says, I figure if Blanche is okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Good point.
So, where did what was the first big thing you did once you finished with school? How did you make your break?
At the Chicago Tribune.
That's a magazine, right?
Writer. I'm sorry?
That's a magazine, right? Or was it a newspaper?
No, it's the biggest newspaper in Chicago.
Oh,
Chicago.
okay. Got it.
It's the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette times 12.
Gotcha. Okay.
Times 12. Yeah.
Put it in language we can understand.
Yeah.
It was also famous for being a very right-wing paper, but at the time, the country wasn't so polarized. It was like the right wing was kind of a joke, and left wing. I was very left wing. I was a student revolutionary, and so I thought that going to work for the Trib, I would strike a blow for democracy by being a gay Jew at the Chicago Tribune. It never had one. It never had a Jew that they knew of. They had gay people they didn't know about. When I was there, one of them transitioned from a man to a woman, the real estate editor, while I was at the Trib. So it was a new day for the Tribune. So I was there, and I was writing features. I was writing mainly about show business and light kind of stuff. And I met Bette Midler. She was appearing at a club there, and I wrote about her, and I started writing for her. And suddenly I was traveling. I was going away on weekends to wherever she was working. She was on Broadway in Fiddler on the Roof, being one of the daughters. But whenever she would take a weekend away, and she would go do clubs, and I would go. I'd meet her, and a lot of people came through town, and they heard I was writing for her. So I collected a stable of people I was writing for: George Carlin and Lily Tomlin, Richard Pryor, David Steinberg. They were Joan Rivers, and I was writing for them and her. And after 5 years of that, Bette had a dresser whose brother started an act called the Manhattan Transfer. They were at the time there was a big nostalgia craze, and Bette was, of course, a part of it. She had hit records by remaking old 40s tunes, and the Pointer Sisters did like that. But the Transfer, that was their basic act, and they became a jazz act later on, and they still are. 50 years later, they're celebrating their anniversary as and they're a jazz act. But then they started out, and Bette put their act together, and her manager got them a record deal, and we put together a showcase, and they got a TV series. And I came out here to write this TV series, which was a summer replacement for Cher. And I was already writing for Sonny and Cher, and then they broke up, and I was writing for Cher without Sonny. And then Sonny got a show, and I was writing for Sonny without.
How did that work out? Writing for each one of them at that time.
It was funny. Well, you know, Sonny. It was difficult because she didn't have anybody to play off of when she had Sonny, and their whole act was very. It was the active little guy and the statuesque, ice cold blonde, wife, and they were a team. But that was the energy that he would dance all over the place, and she would come in with one line that would just put him in his place. And they weren't the first to do that. I mean, it was Louis Prima and Keely Smith were a famous Vegas act that had that. And if you look at Boris and Natasha, they were based on that. Or you look at Gomez and Morticia, they all had that same kind of energy. And so that was fun to write for. When they split up, it was difficult because neither one of them had the other person to deal with. So it was a challenge. And their shows separately were never as successful as the shows together, which is why they came back and did a show together that wound up not being successful either. Because the audience didn't buy that they really liked each other anymore, that they really had a bond.
The gig was up.
So they kept dragging poor Chastity onto the show to kind of like, show, see, we're parents. We love ourselves. We love each other. Yeah. Nobody bought it. Least of all Chastity. I mean, she was she's now Chaz Bono, of course. So it's a whole thing. That's act two.
Yeah. When you were writing for all those people, Joan and Lily, and did you kind of, get into their skin to write for them, or did you just write general material and then they made it their own? Like, did you have to get a feel for what you should write for each person?
I always did, yeah. I mean, there are people who just supply jokes. And with Joan, particularly, I mean, a lot of people gave her jokes. But with me, it was always based on her attitude, on what she would say about things. And with all of them, it's like they present a stage persona. I mean, Joan, when I was working for her at the beginning, was still married to Edgar. And her base character was, I'm so ugly, I'm so unattractive, not like Phyllis Diller, who took it to another level, but with Joan, it's like, I'm not desirable, but I try, but I'm fed up with trying. Yeah. And with Phyllis, it was kind of like, just she came out dressed in a clown outfit basically, and it was she was ridiculous. I wrote for her too, but. So you would have to find stuff that would come from that place, and it's easier when they have a developed stage persona that you can write to. With Bette, she created the last of the truly tacky women, and our joke was everything you were afraid your little girl will grow up to be, and your little boy too. So that was base camp, and it would expand from there. And I've always said it's people like Neil Simon and Tony Kushner and playwrights have a much harder job because they have to come up with all of that stuff themselves and sort it out in their heads themselves. And I always had, it was more like Bob Mackie, more like you get somebody, you design a dress for somebody, and obviously you're not going to put Cher in the same outfit you're going to put Lizzo.
Right. Yeah.
Because you have two distinct body types there.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing. You're not going to write something, for Whoopi Goldberg that you're going to write for Celine Dion.
Yeah.
It's always what they are bringing to you to embroider.
Yeah. Was there anybody that you liked writing for more than others?
Oh well, if I didn't say Bette, I would be pilloried. But yeah, I mean, I loved writing for. I mean, I enjoyed writing for everybody. Almost everybody was fun. The people who weren't, I just did the job and kind of walked away from it. But they weren't. They were just, a lot of times people get nervous or they bring you in because they want something different, but they really don't want anything different. But I was crazy. I mean, the Get Bruce, which was made 20 years ago and produced by Harvey Weinstein, who never laid a hand on me.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Why not me? He was a very good producer, I have to say that. And I don't know what else was going on, because
Right.
it was a documentary. It wasn't like there wasn't a set that he was on.
Yeah.
People made the movie, and Harvey bought it and edited it and distributed it. But the movie was Robin and Billy and Whoopi and Bet, and it was extended interviews with them about deconstructing what we did, and then it followed me around to a bunch of the kind of all-star galas that I specialize in, and recorded things there. So there were a whole lot of people in it, and some of the jokes still hold up.
Did you
But
ever
those are the people who I love, those four.
Did you ever have a situation where you couldn't get the joke right for a certain individual and you had to tailor make it and you had to cut it and then retry it? Was it hard?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, with all of them, I mean, sometimes it just hasn't hit the first time and you have to dick around with it. But a lot of people on the Oscar show, particularly, there are actors, and they don't have a character to play. They come out, when Keanu Reeves comes out on stage, he's not going to be Bill and Ted. He's not going to be the Matrix, but there's no Keanu character. He's an actor.
Right.
So he played along one year when we tried to do a Bill and Ted thing, but it was sad, and I'm still apologizing to him over and over. But it's tough. I mean, Johnny Depp was on the show a couple of times. There was no Johnny Depp character, but in working out what he was going to say, he kind of decided that maybe he should have a Johnny Depp character, and so we kind of came up with one for talk shows and interviews. And if you've seen him, it's kind of like equal parts Hunter Thompson, who he played in Fear and Loathing, and Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
He's kind of like a little tipsy, a little baked, but very hip, and kind of like doesn't really give a shit what you're asking him, and just talks about talks obliquely, and that's become his kind of go-to until this latest round of stuff with Amber, where he's had to kind of pick up his game as an adult in order to get out of this mess.
See, I didn't realize that was all performance. I thought that was just him. You know what I mean? Just like Robert Downey Jr. He is Tony Stark, right? Like, it's just.
Well, no, Tony Stark is an extension of a. It's like Bette Midler, the Divine Assembly is an extension of a fantasy Bette has about herself, and Tony Stark is an extension of a fantasy Robert has about himself, and he knows what he's doing. In other words, because he would like to be Tony Stark, and
we all would.
And back in the day, he allowed himself to do that and paid the price, and then he married Susan. Susan keeps him on the straight and narrow. Keeps Tony Stark as a character, and Robert Downey as a person.
Yeah. It's like an outlet for him.
She's an amazing person, Susan
Yeah.
Downey. Yeah.
Well,
she really
I mean,
is.
she's worked wonders for him.
He runs the business.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said she's worked wonders for him.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've known him for a long time. When he was with Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
They were a couple years and years ago, and I always loved him. He's a sweet guy.
We have the Pittsburgh translation of that here too. Our quarterback Ben Roethlisberger had to marry to settle himself down and stay out of trouble. Yep.
That's it. Is he a Jewish boy?
No, he's not. He's not.
Just sounds like he might be.
I think he did some crazy stuff.
Football. And you could actually get hurt. It might. You could hurt your hand, and you couldn't be a surgeon. So there was lots of fear around playing football, and the hardier guys would say, "I want to go out for it," and the mother would say, "Over my dead body." Play tennis.
Yeah.
You can't hurt yourself too much, but you can limp into the operating room with tennis.